Hello and welcome to the Mixed Media Podcast, where we talk about topics related to media in all three of our industries. So we do video game talks, music talks, and film talks, and somehow try to connect all three sometimes. We wanted to do our updated format as we spoke about like 2 podcast episodes ago or something like that, but this time we almost got it. But we couldn't quite get the interview this time. So hopefully next time we'll see. But we'll be doing one Reddit recap or Reddit review rather by Ben, and then me and Irving will be doing normal topics like we used to do like in the olden days. So I guess we'll introduce ourselves. So I'm Nathan Nestor. I'm a game developer and 3D modeler.
I'm Irving. I'm a filmmaker and media entrepreneur. I own a company called RAL, and I'm hearing myself in my headphones, so I'm tripping on my speech.
And I'm Ben Costello. I'm a flute player, and a media composer. And I'm struggling with the fact that like I can't see myself on my screen. So I don't know what's going on with this new Skype update that I have.
Oh, interesting.
There's like background noise, so just ignore that. But okay, yeah, sorry. Interesting start. That was a very strange start. I haven't put up the Discord announcement, by the way, about we're starting our podcast. So I guess I'll ask you guys how your week was, and then I'll write that while you guys speak. So yeah, how you guys doing?
I'm okay. What's happening? Not too much new on my neck of the woods. Just kind of chugging along. So yeah.
Yeah. Not anything particularly new for me. Listening to a lot of music, playing music, trying to network with the other young people in the music industry.
Yeah. And if Nathan is still preoccupied, I'm going to talk about Rumble real quick. Not Rumble. I've talked about that many times. I'm not going to bore you with that right now. I'm going to talk about Locals, which is semi-related. So I finally got around to actually posting the perks that you get on Locals, and I think they're pretty good and comprehensive. So I'm going to pull that up real quick so that you can see it very easily, if I can do this live well. But basically, Locals is like the Patreon. It's just like a Patreon competitor, essentially. And once you make an account, you can actually join the community for free. And so in that sense, it's actually dissimilar. So you can see our posts for when we go live. You can see our posts for when podcasts come out and all that kind of stuff and get notified. But what's different is if you become a supporter, I can give you a whole host of perks. And I think they'll get better over time because I think there are some cool ideas that we might execute sometime in the future, which always means you gotta wait because we never know when that'll happen because I say that all the time. But yeah, I lost the image somehow, so I'm not going to pull it up. I'll actually just semi-read from it. So basically, you can go to mixedmedia.locals.com. It's pinned at the top. So if you go to mixedmedia.locals.com, at the top of the page, you'll see all the perks that you get. So you get live whiteboard access. So that whiteboard on that side of the screen is live. You can draw on it live. I, again, don't have my iPad. I have it. It's not open, and I will not pull it up right now. But you can draw on that thing live. So if you're a supporter at $5 a month, that's all it is. There's only one tier too, so everyone's on equal footing. $5 a month. You get access to that whiteboard on the side of the screen there live, and you can doodle, draw. You can show off your own artistic skills. You can give yourself a shout out. You can plug yourself, give yourself a little advertisement in a drawing form if you'd like. You could interact with us, right? As we speak. You can make fun of us as we speak. All that is well and good. The only caveat is that you don't abuse this very, very big privilege. So Yeah, and that the only way you can get a link to that now is if you go to mixedmedia.locals.com, you become a supporter, and a post will become unlocked to you that has the link to the whiteboard, which will probably periodically refresh so that there's no trolls that leak onto the whiteboard or anything like that. 2, you get you can get your work reviewed. So like we do review stuff sometimes. So basically puts you at the front of the line for people we're going to review. So we'll set aside, hopefully with this new format, we'll be doing that more regularly. So we'll kind of add you to the queue of people as we rotate around to review live. And that's as there is demand. So sooner you join, right, the sooner your stuff gets reviewed. And I think they're quite high value stuff that we provide, reviewing stuff. I know a lot of people have enjoyed them, and I've enjoyed doing them as well. 3rd, you get polls. So polls we'll use to figure out what topics maybe we want to pursue, stuff like that. Just give us feedback, and we'll be deferential to you because you are people who are investing in us. We'll create a Discord role for you on our Discord server, which is there for free for anyone, link in the description, but you'll get a special cool role. They have icons now for roles. So you can have not only a cool role, but maybe you'll have the only role that has an icon or something like that. I don't know. We'll think about it. And the other thing is we have a messaging service on Locals that is exclusive. So you can't message us through there unless you are a patron, basically. And what we'll use that as partly is as a live message box. So if you have a message to send us, a hot take, a question about us or anything that we talked about or anything really random at all, we'll make sure that we address it in the following podcast. And the last thing is as these podcasts are coming out live, we edit them afterwards. And the only place eventually, once we have enough supporters, that you'll be able to see these live streams in the raw with all the bloopers. If there's something that you heard live that you want to make a meme out of, and but what happened was we took it out of the final podcast, you can't find it anymore, it's probably on the raw live that will be immutable on locals.com. So that's the perks for now. But I gotta say, we're gonna have cool stuff in the future. Like, I think we can do a cool thing with film festivals that will not only be like
good game jams.
Yeah, game jams. That'll not only be cool for our platform, but I think will be cool for creators as well. I think we can create like an interesting sort of incentivization thing. The ideas have been bubbling in my head how to sort of funnel some of that money back to the creators as well as much as possible. I know how much that's worth. So yeah, that's my local spiel. So go to mixedmedia.locals.com and you'll find our stuff. All the links are in the description as well if you don't know how to get there. So yeah, that's my spiel. Also,
nice.
Sorry, last thing. That money will go directly into the channel, at least in the short term. Probably for a while, I presume. We'll go back in the channel, allow us to get on Rumble Live. So if you're on Rumble, I love the fam at Rumble. You guys are awesome. You guys consume all kinds of our stuff. I love seeing what kind of becomes more popular and what doesn't become as popular. And those of you on audio only, you guys are slowly creeping up to hold your own, which is awesome. If you want to see us on Rumble Live, if you want to see us quicker on certain audio only platforms such as Clubhouse or whatever it is, what helps that a lot, those initiatives out a lot, is supporting us on Locals. So that's my spiel.
All right. I was gonna say it was I can't log into my Twitch account, so you're gonna have to manage that front. Like, I tried to log in, and Twitch says like as an added security measure, please enter the 6-digit code we sent to your email, whatever. Right? I checked my email, it's not there, so I tried resending it, and it says like there's a problem or something like that. So I don't have. I guess my Twitch account is just gone temporarily. So
it's a bit bizarre.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll monitor the chat though. So, what's that?
I'll monitor chat.
Okay, cool. All right, I guess I'll be starting with my topic, which is about digital distribution platforms. Notes, there they are. Okay, digital distribution platforms. which are the modern way of buying games. So once upon a time, you used to go to GameStop or something like that to get your games. It's not really a thing anymore, at least not a very popular thing to do at all. You use online platforms such as Steam, Epic Games, or GOG. Those are the ones I'm really be talking about mostly. Like there are a bunch of other ones, like Roblox, are like the ones that they're only able to be used by the publisher slash developer themselves who developed it. So like Uplay for Ubisoft, Origin slash the EA app for EA, and Battle.net for I think was that Activision Blizzard, I think, and stuff like that. Like, I'm not gonna be talking about those stuff. And also not gonna be talking about like Xbox Store, PlayStation Store, app stores. Literally just Steam, Epic Games, GOG. So just like public platforms, like as in anybody can apply to be on the platform on PC specifically, excluding Roblox because Roblox is weird. So we're gonna have another episode about that one. So yeah, I'll be talking about how they're kind of tough. They're kind of tough on the indie game developer and tough on developers in general. Really, it was just of course, if you're tough on all developers, it's going to hurt the people who are smallest the most. But in general, some wackiness. Whether I don't know. I'm not really be pointing fingers in this case. I'm not really sure who's to blame, whether it's the distribution platforms themselves, whether it's the consumers, whether it's the developers. They probably all have their hand in it in some sense, but I'll just get to it what I'm complaining about. Okay. So yeah, all these platforms are pretty different. Steam, Epic Games, GOG, all right? So they all have their sort of pros and cons. Steam being like it has the biggest audience out of all of them by far. The downside being that Steam sales exist, which I'll get to later, and why that's like not good. Well, it's good in some sense. It's also not good in a different way. It's also Epic Games where you can. Epic Games might pay you if they really like your game idea to be a platform exclusive on the Epic Games Store. And you also get a high revenue share for developers. I think they take 12%, but the GOG and Steam both take 30%, which is like a lot less, or a lot more, rather. And the GOG is a lot. So I sort of mentioned them in order of popularity. So you definitely heard of Steam, probably heard of Epic Games. You may have not heard of GOG. GOG is owned by CD Projekt, and CD Projekt Red is a child of CD Projekt. I believe GOG is that the same? It might be the same thing as CD Projekt Blue or something like that. I think it also has its own color or something like that. I don't remember, but GOG is owned by CD Projekt. It's a store, not just for CD Projekt Red games. It's for any game. The whole like unique thing about it is that all those games are DRM free. I don't remember what DRM stands for. Like, is it digital rights management? I think. Essentially, the thing in a game that makes sure that you're not stealing the game. Essentially, all GOG games must be DRM free. So, as an example, a lot of games do this, specifically multiplayer ones. If you try to join a multiplayer match, the game will check to make sure the license you have for the game is actually valid and that you didn't pirate the game, for example. And if it does look like you're using a pirated version of the game, it won't let you play multiplayer. Otherwise, it'll let you play. The reason why GOG exists for, why would you want DRM free stuff, right? It's kind of a question is like, is it just like a pirating thing? Well, not really. There's some arguments to be made for it, such as the fact that like DRM in single player specifically is kind of nasty because in order for DRM to work, you essentially have to be connected to the internet. And so if you want to play a single player game, just maybe you have your laptop and you're on a road trip or something. You're just not somewhere where you have Wi-Fi easily accessible. Then you can't. If you had a game that a single player and enforced DRM, as in like you literally must be connected to the internet at all times to play this game, and that kind of sucks. Or if you have a poor internet connection. I believe this is a problem with Ghost Recon Breakpoint. The game does have both multiplayer and single player, but it definitely has a big focus on the single player instead. But I'm pretty sure the game locks you into an always on, like always connected to Ubisoft servers state. So I remember hearing people have these issues where the game randomly disconnects, maybe because their Wi-Fi cuts out for a moment or something. Unreliable Wi-Fi in a single player game. So there's a price to pay for DRM. But It's not a topic for another time. I can do a whole video on DRM. And it's all GOG also asks as like a third option if you don't want to support Steam or Epic Games for whatever reason. It's like if the game's both. Some people will be like, oh, the game's on Steam and GOG. I'll just buy from GOG because Steam has some questionable business practices and stuff like that. Okay, so what are the actual problems with digital distribution? So the sales. I don't mean sales in how many times buying a copy. I mean sales and a discount. So I mean a discount sale. So Steam, Epic Games, and GOG will all have their classic. They'll have many sales throughout the year, but the big ones are the seasonal sales. So they have a summer sale, winter sale, fall sale, etc. And sometimes holiday sales too, stuff like that. So the seasonal sales specifically are where the bulk of the sales happen. And I mean, wow, okay. I'm using the word sale a lot, and it can mean two different things. It can mean discount, or it can mean like buying a copy of the game. I was using it in both senses. So let me restart using the terms correctly. So seasonal discounts are where most discounts happen, and they cause a bulk of the buys to happen for games, right? If you ever look at like a graph of some games buys in a given period of time, say a year, always be these massive spikes during these seasonal discount areas, and it'll usually be by far like that is essentially what's keeping the game alive. Is just those holiday sale periods essentially, and it's kind of not good in a sense, right? Because what's happening essentially is that in order to keep competitive, you have to you always see those memes with like Gaben, right? The dude who founded Valve, who owns Steam, and everything being like 75% off or 90% off, and ridiculous sales like that. Because it's true, there are sales like that, and the reason why they exist is to keep competitive. So during these holiday seasons, this is when all the developers are like, all right, time to make my season salary essentially. They're pushed to essentially like grind themselves to death by making their games 90% off to compete with the other ones. I'm not saying every game does that. Not every game, because the way it works essentially is you have to be invited to be in the summer sale. I believe Steam cites the numbers being like about the 20 to 30% of top selling games are invited to be part of the Steam summer sale. And I mean, that's probably a lot more than it sounds like, because most games on Steam, as we talked about before, don't make much at all, because they're just, so I'll make something, decide I'm going to put on Steam, and then they don't think about it again, and stuff like that. So 20-30% is probably perhaps a majority of serious indie developers, essentially. So they're invited, and they can either choose to do it or not, and they can set their own discount price. So what happens is most people just do it because they know that everyone's going to buy all the other games during these sale periods, and they're not going to buy their game during the sale period. Now, the sale period is essentially like, especially for indie game developers, is crucial, because it's kind of saddening, but a lot of times you see like reviews for games sometimes on Steam, and it's like, or not even just Steam, but elsewhere too, and they'll say like, this is a great game, I would recommend that you buy it when it's on sale. It's like, it is a great game, right? So why specifically on sale? Is because these sales happen very often, right? I cited that there are 4 seasonal sales plus the random holiday sales plus the sales they do in between, just for no event, just because they want to or whatever, right? You really don't have to wait long to find one of these sales, and once you do, you grab the $60 game for $20 or something like that, right? Because why would you not do that when there's really not that much time between having to buy between each sale, right? So it's sort of like everyone's trying to stay competitive, so they reduce the price of the game during these sales, which sort of is a like endless cycle of people being like, oh well, they did it, so I have to do it, and I have to do even more this time, and stuff like that, all competing for everyone's buys essentially. So yeah, that's kind of the problem with seasonal sales. It's going to bring the average cost of your game totally down, right? So a $60 game might on average sell for 20 or something like that, right? Well, $60 games tend to not be indie games, and it's usually the indie games that suffer most from this. But say a $20 game that ends up averaging like 15 or something like that, or it's kind of strange. And yeah, because they're so ubiquitous, they end up being expected by the consumers. So, it's sort of similar to like the $60 price cap, right? Where I keep saying over and over again, it doesn't really make sense, not at all. Or like the $30 standard, right? It's either $30 or $60. It doesn't really make sense, but it's expected by the consumer, and so that's just how it has to be, right? Essentially, until companies feel that there's too much pressure and they just decide that they have to break the barrier, right? Which is what we're seeing with the $70 price, the new $70 price cap, which isn't even like fully adopted yet, right? So, and yeah, Steam sort of acts like one of those like, sort of, because they have about like, their exact market share is unknown, but the number that I see usually like hover between like 70 to 75% of market share for PC game distribution. They sort of they have incredible power in this, right? So if all these Steam sales are happening that have like these 75% off things, right? Like it's like sort of like what are the people on the platform going to do, right? Are they going to go somewhere else where they don't have to compete with those kind of sales? Well, I mean, Steam has that 75% market share. Where else are you going to go? You're going to go to Epic Games or GOG, where the amount of people, your audience is so much lower, and as well, if during those sales, like, if you manage to be front page on Steam, that's great. That's gonna be great for sales and stuff like that. And think about it, like 75% market share might not seem like, it's like, okay, but there's still some competition and stuff like that. Well, you know, let me remind you the fact that the other 25% includes big stuff like Origin, Uplay, and Battle.net, right? Like things that you can't even get into because you're not part of that company, you're just an indie dev or whatever, right? So when we're talking about like what I've heard before as public games distribution platforms, the 75% I'm sure is a lot higher, right? Maybe more towards 90% or something like that, where Steam really becomes more of a almost the only viable option, maybe the only viable option depending on who you ask. And yeah, so aside from sales or discounts or whatever you want to call them, the other thing that's kind of no good about the current state of digital distribution platforms are their return policies or their refund policies. So Steam and Epic Games share a very, very similar refund policy. It's in general the same. So essentially, I'm going to strip it down a lot because there are a bunch of rules and stuff like that as to when you can refund something. But the basic things are that you can refund something if you have less than 2 hours of playtime in it, and you haven't owned the game for more than 14 days, essentially. So I'm gonna give you like an anecdote about this. So one time, I think it was I want to say it was like a Black Friday sale or something like that. I don't know, some sale is happening. I was buying a bunch of games because on sale. I was like, now's the time. And in hindsight, I'm like, it's kind of not good for the developers. But at the time, I didn't even think about it, and I was just buying a bunch of games during the sale period. And I had a friend who recommended me a game called Refunked. It's like a little platformer game. Takes less than an hour to complete. And in his reasoning for why I should get it, he said, it's less than 2 hours, so you can refund it after you finish the game. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. If you play the entire game, in theory, it's entertains you for the entire amount of time, but yet you can still refund it. It's pretty broken. And what it essentially does is it enforces this idea that your games must be over 2 hours to play. This is a topic I've seen on Reddit before. And it like boggled my mind, the comments people were saying, like, well, you shouldn't have a game that's less than 2 hours of playtime. Like, what? Have you never played like a board game? Like, you expect to play a board game for over 2 hours or something like that? Like, this is like just a video game thing, you know what I'm saying? This is not a general media thing, No one's upset at like, I don't know, like, if you have a movie that's 30 minutes, it's a short film, it's not a movie anymore, you know what I'm saying? Of course, it's going to attract maybe a different type of audience, but it's not like it's rejected as like, if you make a 30-minute movie, that's not even a movie at all. It's just, you go even lower than 30 minutes. It's not a short film. It's just a video, right? It's a YouTube video, for example, or something like that.
Seems like a fairly simple thing to fix, right? Like all they have to do is like make it like if you're under 2 hours, then there's a different proportion, and it would be that easy.
What is it about?
Like if
you mean like if the total playtime of the game is under 2 hours, you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, they can definitely just, I think the refund takes about 40 minutes to complete, like, on average, if you play like non-completionists, whatever. So you could just make it like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, like that. Even that, I
Yeah.
mean, that's half the game, but whatever. And also, the game is only $3. So, like, come on, just give him his $3 for making that. Give him his $3. Like, don't be like that. But people are like this. Like people are actually like, you can't make a less than 2 hour game because people will just refund it. I mean, Refund has seen incredible success in that it's been bought by a lot of people, so I'm sure he actually did make a lot of money off it because there are enough people who aren't scummy who, just didn't refund it, right? Like myself, I didn't end up refunding it. Um, I was like, wait a minute, I literally can't do this. Like, like I'm literally stealing because, yeah, pretty much I'm just stealing at that point. So yeah, they should just they should just scale it. Technically, you can't do this forever. Steam and Epic Games will say like, well, we technically prevent this because if you refund the game too many times, or refund too many games, essentially, we'll essentially manually review it and see if that's like suspicious and whether you actually have a reason, because you have to actually put in a reason. But you could just say like, I didn't like it or something like that, or it didn't run on my hardware, something like that. But I'm sure if you space it out enough, right, you just you get like a $3 game every once in a while. You just have free $3 games every couple of months. It's kind of messed up. But yeah, GOG takes a different approach. It's a 30-day refund policy, and there's no playtime thing. It's just 30-day refund policy. Their thing is, I think it's a recent update to the refund policy, is that you can refund it for literally any reason. Now, there's a weird part about this because GOG has no DRM, right? Which means that you can download the game and then you can refund it, and now you still have the game, right? On Steam, if you refund it, Steam will no longer let you have the game, right? Like, I'm not sure if it's forcibly uninstalled, but regardless, there's some weird Steam token things that essentially verify that you actually own the game when you try to launch it from Steam, right? But GOG, kind of the point is that there is no DRM, which means that you can buy a game, refund it for whatever reason apparently, and now you literally just own it. They also do the same thing where if you refund too many, they'll be like, oh, it's kind of suspicious, let's look into that. But really, I mean, thinking about it, say you want to buy infinite games, right? You make an account, get a $60 game, you refund it within 30 days. You can literally refund it the next day, whatever, right? Okay, now the game is yours to keep for free, right? Now just make a new account and do it again. It really isn't that hard to get by, especially because it's $60 is not nothing, right? It takes some hours of work to acquire $60 at your job. It takes 5 minutes to make a new account. Like the in terms of pure like money saving, it would make sense in an economic, I just want to be as wealthy as possible type way to just make a new account and return the thing. I don't know how to deal with that. That sounds pretty horrible in my opinion. But yeah, I feel like, I don't know, if you're doing the whole no DRM thing, maybe your or refund policy should be very strict. I mean, especially nowadays where it's you know what you're getting. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just look up YouTube videos, you know exactly what you're getting for the most part, right? I guess the question is, will I actually have fun in this game? Maybe you didn't. Well, it's part of like just the risk of it, right? It's like buying a movie ticket, right? You might not like the movie, but you can't go. You wouldn't expect to go to the movie theater and be like, this is a bad movie, give me my money back, right? Or else everyone would do that. A lot of people would just do that. They're like, I didn't like the movie, even if they really enjoyed it. Can I have my money back? Whatever. That's essentially what's allowed here.
So before you continue, I had this weird trans. What's the word I'm looking for? Tangential. That's the word. Tangential thought. So why? So the concept of a DRM, it's tied to like. So is the only way for you to have DRMs to tie yourself to the internet? There's no other way.
So okay, DRM. So it just stands for digital rights management, right? So I don't know if it technically needs to be connected to the internet. There are anti-piracy things that are not connected to the internet. The thing is that they can be, you should never trust something on someone's computer, like, if you know what I'm saying. So you can edit like you can edit the files, right, in such a way that deactivates whatever checking thing there is to check for that you actually bought the game legitimately. There are games that have done this, but they get cracked eventually, right? All it does is delay the inevitable. I guess you don't have piracy on launch, which is nice, right? You have piracy after a few months instead. The good thing about having the internet connected DRM stuff is that you can't edit code that's not on your computer. So if the server is the thing checking for licenses and stuff like that, then you can't actually get around that, at least not in any easy way,
Is part of the problem too that they give you unlimited keys? Because I'm thinking if you like you could make it so that it only runs on one machine, right? So you can't pass it around, because I think that's really the end problem, is that you can just pass it around.
I mean, but if it's all locally done, then you disable whatever attempts to lock into your computer, right?
Yeah, I'm wondering if you could create. Sorry, this is getting really tangential, but I wonder if you could create like a custom executable for the machine that you're on, which would be an interesting. I'm sure there's a problem with that.
Oh, like it literally just works on this computer only.
Literally just only works on this computer.
The computer is only so unique, you know what I'm saying, in terms of hardware.
Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah, but hardware level anti-piracy thing. Wasn't there something about Windows 11 and like hardware level anti-piracy stuff?
I have no idea.
I feel like I recall. I don't know. Maybe I'm making that up, but I thought I remember something like that. Yeah, I guess I can see. I guess I can look it up later. But yeah, okay. So yeah, problem with this like refunding thing is like not only do you just not give the developers the money they deserve, it's that like you disincentivize people from making short games. So, I talked over and over again about the $60 price point thing, right? And how I think it should be higher for AAA games and stuff like that. And a counter argument to like the whole $70 standard or higher thing is that, well, whenever you buy a game, you're taking a risk when you buy it, right? And so essentially, when you pay less, you're compensating for that risk because, yes, you get a lot of content, but $60 is no small investment, right? It's I get what they're saying, right? It's not. I guess it shouldn't be necessarily linear or something like that to the however you want to the quality, however you measure that. You know what I'm saying? Because you are. Oh, okay. Here's an example, right? If I charged you like say I don't know $3. Okay, sorry. Okay, let's say X dollars for a case of water, for example, right? Or I charge you 2X dollars for 2 cases of water. Most people don't need 2 cases of water at once, so they might be more inclined to buy the first case in case they don't actually end up using it, because then they end up spending less money, right? Because, well, you get it. Yes. Okay. So in this sense, it's like that's what happens at like especially like Sam's Club, right? Where you buy things in bulk, but the idea is that it's all cheaper, right? In part because of risk stuff, in part because you pay a membership fee, but buying in bulk tends to be cheaper because you're essentially taking on more risk that you might not use a product or whatever, and the company will likely thank you for taking on such a risk, and so you get the discount. So yeah. So I get that counter argument, and shorter games will literally just fix that problem, right? A game like Refund is $3. There is like no risk. There is no risk in that. Essentially, you lose your $3, and it's like, well, not really a big deal for potentially 40 minutes of a fun time, which is nice. So yeah, you can no longer make like under 2-hour games and put them on any platform of any decent size, because at least on PC, because then it'll be people will take advantage of it and refund the game when they actually just played through the entire thing. So I bought Refund on a whim. I bought it literally the same day I was told about it because it's only $3. I would not buy a $60 game based on one recommendation that I didn't know anything about. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, there's a whole space of games that could be created that are just small. You know what I'm saying? Literally just small games. That'd be very, very
Those
nice.
are kind of like relegated to like the App Store, pretty much, like mobile.
Oh, yikes. Yeah. We don't want that there. We want that here. We want small games here. It also helped a lot with indie developers, right? So problem with indie developers now is that they're struggling to get to that 2 hour content limit, essentially, right? Um, if they could surpass that, like, or if that wasn't a thing to begin with, it was all relative to the refund policy, relative to the length of your game, then that'd be great. But unfortunately, it's not. Um, yeah, it's pretty much most of what I have to say. I guess some other critiques about digital distribution platforms, specifically Steam. Dude, it is so buggy and so slow. It's insane. I don't even know how like a company of such size, who essentially has dominated the entire PC gaming market of sales for decades at this point. What are they doing? How is it so? I don't know. I'm inclined to think that the devs at Steam are kind of bad. That's just my guess, or something, or they don't care, because like, why would they care? There's no competition. You know what I'm saying? There's no real competition, at least. Uh, I mean, it's kind of hope in a way for Steam having to be forced to get better by competition, because there's a time when Epic Games Store was essentially no one knew it even existed, and now it's actually a known thing, because they've started pushing it further. But still, I mean, the amount of people who don't use Epic Games for dumb reasons, like, oh well, I don't know, like there's no it lacks features, right? Okay, it lacks features. What features does it lack? It lacks a chat. Bro, who uses the chat on Steam? Nobody. Okay, like 7 people in the entire world. Okay, so there's no. I mean, come on. The reason why I wouldn't want to use Epic Games Store is mostly because there's no Steam Workshop. The Steam Workshop is actually amazing. That not being a thing on Epic Games sucks, but only for games that require the Steam Work, or not require, but are good with the Steam Workshop. You can technically download mods from places like moddb.com. It's just a bit more work. You have to like download it, put it in whatever folder you need to put it into, whatever. Might have to do some extra setup and stuff like that. But there's also some pros to ModDB. So ModDB, you can update things whenever you want to. I'm pretty sure on Steam Workshop you're forced to update. Like you have to like, if the mod updates, your version will get auto updated, which is so strange. I don't get it. And for that reason, a lot of developers will not actually they'll put like some, like, I remember this for Hearts of Iron. Since Hearts of Iron mods can be pretty massive, a lot of them, and require decently large teams to work on them. And there are many iterations of versions that go through, and many of them will be buggy, right? Essentially, they have like beta versions of things. Well, they want to put the most recent version on the Steam Workshop, as a beta version that's buggy for everyone to download. So what they end up doing is essentially end up abandoning the Steam Workshop. They put like an old version on it, and in the description they'll be like, you can get the newest version here, essentially. And it's like a link to ModDB where you can just download the beta if you want to, which is the newest, or you can download like the latest stable version, stuff like that. But Steam, being as bad as it is, does not have such a feature like that. So yeah, Steam needs to up their game. It's pretty trash. And also, Steam needs to not like auto mute their videos like on trailers. I hate that so much. Like, why do I have to go to every single page I go to? I have to unmute it manually. How many people want to play muted? I don't know. I don't get it. At least I wish we would remember. Like if you unmute it once every time you do it in the same session, it would be unmuted. But yeah. Anyways, that's a tangent. And oh yeah, I guess another critique is 30% market share is kind of weird. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know, maybe I'll formulate an opinion about it. I'm kind of skeeved though, but yeah, that's all I have to say.
What about Xbox Game Pass? Do you think that's a potential competitor?
Yeah, I was considering talking about that, but I figured that'd be a bit too much to talk about in one episode because it's more different than Steam, GOG, and Epic Games. What was the question? Sorry. Something that,
I was just asking if you thought it was a viable competitor. You don't have to go into too much detail, but yeah.
Gotcha. I think it's a different space. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not as it's a subscription service. It's a subscription service. It's a whole different audience. I mean, is it competing? I think it's going to do a good bit to compete, yes, but I don't know. I feel like it's still tough, right? Because the same things that Epic Games lacks is also the same things that Xbox Game Pass lacks. Like Steam Workshop and stuff like that. People make the same arguments. I guess the argument for it is that it's very cost effective a lot of the times, and the fact that you can play a lot of games for pretty cheap, and also your games carry over to the Xbox console. So yeah, Yeah, I guess it's hard to tell. I don't actually see it being like, a huge dominating player like Steam. I think Steam, at least not for a while, I think Steam's going to be, essentially like mostly unopposed for a very, very long time. But yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Cool. Is that pretty much it?
What is that?
Is that pretty much it?
Yeah, that's all I'd say for that.
Okay. So I don't think there's anyone watching right now, which is kind of abnormal. Usually, at least there's people popping in and out, but I haven't seen people pop in and out, which is kind of interesting, curious. But yeah, so I'll just reintroduce the podcast, and then we'll go into Ben's bit. Hold up. Oh, that's the wrong one. There we go. All right, welcome back to Mixed Media Live. Well, if you're listening to this in post, it's not live anymore. So if you didn't know, you can find links in the description, whether you're on audio only or you're on YouTube or Rumble or wherever you are. In the description, there is a link to our live platforms that you can go to get notifications for when we do go live. Nathan just talked about different distribution platforms with games, the problems that they have. Mostly Steam is kind of garbo. So if you want to hear why, then you can head over to that on our platforms. So with that, let's begin the hot take. So Arguing with Reddit is a segment that we do. It started off with sort of all of us reacting to hot takes in several rounds, and it sort of morphed into this little segment that we do to sort of break up the live show and break up the kind of content that we offer. It looks like you guys like that. I see that, that variation does work pretty well. So give us a thumbs up so that we know to continue doing this stuff. So we're going to do it. We're going to pull up the hot takes that I didn't find them this week because I didn't have time. So producer wife found them. So I don't know what's in them. And Nathan found. I don't know. Did you find one for yourself yet, or at all, Ben? Or I think you're muted. Oh,
there we go. Is that better?
Yeah.
I have something I can respond to, but I don't have a screenshot of it.
Okay. Yeah. No worries. All right, let me start with one of these random ones here. So let's see. Spin the wheel. And there we go. So I think this one comes from producer wife Steph. And it says, I think this was kind of a meme one. What does the fox say is good on a musical level with the exception of the annoying noises the singer makes during the drop? Really random internet opinion here. And the song's outro is actually amazing. The giant buildup of tension and release that happens after the final chorus has a ton of emotion in it, and it's really well done. I'm not sure why they wanted to put what's supposed to be this epic emotional climax at the end of a song that's entirely a joke. That's entire joke is annoying noises funny, but it's very good with 24 upvotes. 17 comments, 87% upvoted. Thank you. Was this Ayuzuki for your hot take?
I don't know that I can really say anything on this. I'm not even sure that I've ever heard the whole song. I may have heard I think I know the chorus, but I really don't know that I've heard the song, so I don't know that I can speak intelligently about it. I'm interested in listening to it because I want to know what tension release there would be in a song of this style, because that's not something I would associate with this kind of style. But to this particular point, I really can't offer anything, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's pretty Lowell's opinion. I'll actually just do the other one that producer wife found to back it up. Let me pull this off the screen real quick. And let's see what this one has for us. So this one says, it doesn't matter if it's quote unquote real music, it only matters if it sounds good. And their explanation of that is, I just don't get people who immediately dismiss today's music because there are no guitarists or drummers playing instruments. I understand people just don't like new music, and that's fine. But most people don't even give it a listen because it's not real music. Before you say anything, my parents played me their music from the 80s and told me new music sucks because it's not real. I do concede I was really into ABBA. What's that? That's... not sure.
ABBA. ABBA, like the band?
Oh, that is the band's name. Okay, I thought it was an acronym. I'm not familiar. I was a simple kid, so I believed them. I then really realized that I think new music is great. They can't stand the idea of music without guitarist or drummer. I looked at reviews and articles about this, and so many people share this opinion. I can't tell you what to like, but if that is you, why do you care about the realities than if it sounds good? 46 upvotes. Thank you, James, on r/unpopular opinions.
I've heard this take before, actually, surprisingly. Like, one other time that synthetic music is inherently worse than non-synthesized music because there are no instrumentalists or whatever.
Yeah, so I don't know that this person is really wording this in the best way, because what I think they mean is that they're upset with people who say that contemporary American, presumably American, but like obviously there's some other countries that would fall under this bracket too, but we'll just say American. We'll scratch country. Well, that I think so. I guess what they mean is that a lot of contemporary pop music is not real music compared to classic rock or like things more closely aligned with classic rock. And I mean, one, I don't know that I really have encountered that, and two, I mean, like if you're gonna argue that, I mean that's a pretty limited. You're really limiting yourself, because music is way more than just like the Beatles to, I don't know, Journey or something like that. Like this music is way bigger than that. Like across time and also like across, even within a given time, across cultures. So it's I mean, that's kind of, you need to, if you're going to make that argument, you got to first phrase it exactly how, phrase it correctly. And so not only do I think this actual post is phrasing it correctly, but I think that the person, the kind of thing that people they're responding to are also probably not phrasing that correctly. Yeah. So, but if we just limit it to like rock and roll through like even indie music today, but still involves a lot of acoustic instruments versus the kind of synthesized world that started coming around in the end of the 70s. So even if we just limit ourselves to that, I mean, if you really want to respond to this, I mean, you can ask yourself what music is. And that's a really in-depth question, but doesn't really have an answer. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I think I would certainly call anything that's made with synthesis and electronic instruments music. Some things, there are things that I would say maybe are not music in the same sense as like we normally mean music, but that wouldn't be encompassed by this. Like I'm not sure I consider like John Cage and like truly chance music to be music, because even if the end result is musical, there's not, I think there's an element of intentionality that needs to be there for it to be music, but we're not talking about that. So yeah, I consider all of these things to be, in the post author's words, real music. Does it mean that I necessarily like everything? No, but I wouldn't necessarily like everything that's considered real music by the people this person is referring to either. But do I think there's a difference between things that are synthesized and things that involve real musicians? And that's a harder question. And I'm not going to I wouldn't put a value judgment on it as this person is saying that other people do. But do I think there's a slight difference? Yes. I think if you can do it with live musicians, then it's better to do it with live musicians. But if you know what you're doing with electronic things, and you have the intention to do it that way, you're not just like deliberately saying I'm just not, there's something inherently wrong with acoustic instruments, which I don't know people who do that. But if you did, then sure, then maybe you're kind of cheating yourself as a musician. But otherwise, there are things that live musicians add to music, but they can't necessarily do everything that you might want them to do. So if you know what you're doing and you know why a live instrument isn't the correct choice in a particular circumstance, then it's fine not to use one.
Yeah, I would also add that, like, it's weird when people get like this about stuff and they say, oh, the old versus the new. It's like, yeah, I think your parents are being weird about it. But, a more valid opinion could be like, I think, or let me try to make it more of an objective statement from their point of view. If they said something like the 80s music in general, or 80s pop music in particular, in general, is better than today's pop music, that's something you could actually have a discussion about. But like, if you're saying one music is real over the other, that's already like kind of demeaning just in of itself. And, that's not really as, I don't think that's a useful thing to talk about. Yeah. Okay. So this one is from Nathan. Let me see what this says. So it says, this is from Level 7 King. It says, music is about cashing a check now. You have to listen to independent music to get anything real anymore. I think the second half of that sentence is the more interesting part. But yeah, go ahead.
That's probably, again, genre specific. I think it depends on what you're listening to and what you're talking about. There's plenty of nice music. For instance, obviously, a lot of what we talk about on this show is like media music, which is not independent. You're contracted to write something. You don't own it at the end of composing it. I think there's a lot of value in some of that music. So, but I can see that in certain, particularly pop genres, that some things may come off as being more artificial from larger labels, but again, I think it probably varies by what person you're talking about too, because I think a lot of these bigger people do care about music. They may not necessarily write all of their own things, or maybe they don't all approach music in the same way, and maybe you could ask questions about people especially like the young Disney stars who are brought up and raised to be musicians. And I mean, I don't know any of them, right? I've never talked to any of them, but I would wonder, for instance, how, what their perspectives on music are now compared to when they were, I don't know how young they were when Disney snatched them up and turned them into little stars on, but or Nickelodeon, other things like that, so you could probably ask. Well, obviously I can't ask them, but I think that is maybe a question you could explore.
Oh no! Oh, Ben, you broke up for a moment.
You're still frozen.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, you're still.
I hear you.
Not on my end.
Oh, you can barely hear you. I think, I don't know, like Wi-Fi's cutting out or something.
Yeah, it looks like. Oh, I think. Never mind.
So,
yeah, it looks like your internet's crap. Oh.
I think it might be delayed. You know what I'm saying? Like.
Okay.
I think it'll come back eventually. That's what happened last time.
Yeah.
Sometimes
getting better.
Yeah, sometimes internet cycles, Sometimes actually your router can cause this if it's
oh yeah.
It'll just like auto cycle and like reset. Are you Oh.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Is the
All right,
audio
well,
not working either?
What happened?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, I'm going to take this opportunity to talk about something. I found out recently, right? It's music related. This is what I'm saying this now. It's not related to what was happening here, but you're not really saying anything, right? Like, we'll wait. So there's this thing called the Unison chord pack you can buy, right? And what it is this company called Unison sells chords. I was like, what do you mean selling chords? How does that work? Like MIDI files of chords, like literally, like you can buy yourself a C major, like with like the MIDI file, right?
What?
And I was like, it's straight up a scam. Like there's no value to it, right? But they say like, oh, we have so many scales or so many chords, dude. They're selling like not only selling major chords, they're saying they have more than they really have because they have like C major, D major, you know what I'm saying? And they just keep going up, you know what I'm saying? So for anyone who doesn't know music, like this is the equivalent to like someone saying like, oh, to do your like art, your visual art, I'm going to sell you a circle. It's like, what the heck? And you can't make this circle yourself. When, in fact, the advertising for Unison MIDI chord pack essentially says like, music theory is like for losers, essentially. Like you shouldn't learn music theory. Just grab our chord pack, because if you're learning music theory, one of the first things you learn is like what a chord is and how to construct like basic chords, like major and minor chords, right? And then from there you learn more advanced chords, whatever, and stuff like that, right? But literally what they do is say, you don't need that. What we're gonna do is we're gonna do chords, and you just gotta put them lined up. That's how you make. That's a recipe for very, very generic music. First off. Number two, you can get MIDI chord packs for free, like literally, because they're just simple. Like as I said, it's as simple as selling a circle. Like you can find programs with circles in them for free. You know what I'm saying? It's not a big deal. But yeah, and like not only we have C major, we have D major. That's like saying like not only do we have a circle of 1 unit radius, we have a circle of 2 unit radius. It's like, dude, you just shift the chord up, dude. Isn't that hard? But yeah,
that's actually mind blowing.
I don't. Yeah, I don't even like. What do you do? Like, you buy it and then what? Like, you could just.
Yeah, you get like the MIDI file for all the chords, so you can drag it into your DAW. But it's like, why don't you just make it yourself in the DAW?
You can't just hit the 3 notes on the piano.
Nope. Apparently, that's too complicated.
It has to be even simpler. That's
you can't use the free ones that exist. Apparently, that's not good.
Don't limit salesmen, man. They can sell anything. That's pretty crazy.
That's fascinating.
What were you saying before, Ben? Though, before you cut out, because you're fully back now.
Oh, what was I saying? I guess, I mean, I understand though that like on some level, a lot of popular music does feel more, tightly produced and managed, and therefore maybe at least it probably seems less authentic than a lot of indie stuff. But to be fair, indie artists are also kind of going after money in the same way too, or else they can't survive, right? So they're equally as motivated um, by profit in some way. In some ways, I would say, because maybe it's some level you don't worry about profit, but like anything that's like large and indie has to worry about profit. And then at that point, is it really that different? I don't know.
I just say, like, I think these kinds of mentalities, like, I don't think there's not this great divide between economics and art. They are intertwined. If you try to create that great divide, you'll find very easily that either the arts die or the economics die, and that's okay. That's literally just the constraints of reality. That's okay. I'll give you an example. Uh, yeah, I'll give you an example. Like, take someone who's super popular, has sold 1,000,001 records, but if you look at these, well, actually, there are many examples of these people. If you look at their careers objectively, you would say no decision they made early in their career correlated with something they could expect to make money from because of trends or algorithms or anything like that. It's because they thought that they were reaching for, making good art, right? And what ends up happening is it resonates, and it's okay. You can make good art that doesn't connect well. I think the bridge between those things is kind of what I'm going to be talking about in my segment. But like, is marketing. You have to put effort into people knowing who you are. But that's a different question from whether people will like your stuff. Those are two different questions. If they never hear your stuff, they can't decide whether they like it or not, right? So, the example I was going to give was like, take like a Kendrick, right? Like, his most acclaimed album, To Pimp a Butterfly, if you listen to that thing, it does not sound like the time that it was produced in. It doesn't sound like anything, actually. It sounds extremely delicate, at the same time extremely complex, very well thought out. The jazz influences are more extreme than they used to be in like older hip hop. They're just, it's amazing stuff, but you wouldn't know it. You wouldn't guess that would be the thing to blow up, but he made it anyway, right? Because yeah, he cares about making money, of course, but like, he also just made a thing that he wanted to share that he thought was good, actually. So I think the biggest common denominator, or the I shouldn't say that, the biggest thing you can do for yourself always is to just become a better artist. That's always the biggest thing you can do for yourself.
Yeah, I think it's also sort of the whole like Beethoven narrative that somehow I think has also worked its way even into contemporary pop music, where the kind of way oversimplified narrative is that all the other big composers, or pretty much every composer out there prior to Beethoven, was an employee of somebody, and they wrote music when they're asked to write music. Bach was employed by various churches, and they would say, you need to write a mass this weekend, so you write a mass for each weekend. Or Haydn, was employed by the Esterhazy like family, and with their own orchestra, and they said, great, we want a new symphony for our party next weekend, so you got to write a new symphony. And Beethoven comes along and it's like, I'm going to write music, and I'm not going to I'm going to sell it, and I'm not going to be employed by somebody. But that's a really oversimplified view of what Beethoven did. It's not like Beethoven only wrote pieces he wanted to write. He was commissioned all the time. He just didn't have one sole employer for a long term. So it's part of that narrative that if you are an independent artist, you can create independent art, and it's of greater value and greater artistic merit. That's really not a very accurate narrative.
In fact, if you want to convince yourself of this fact, go to r/what is it, the composer one, it's like r/original music. That's the interesting one. I think that has all the, I'm sorry to say, lower quality stuff on there. But go there. All those people are independent artists. Is that a qualifier for good stuff in of itself? No. Like, even go on r/short films, and how many of those people are noteworthy on that platform? I mean, a lot of people are on their way to somewhere potentially, but that's, being underground or indie is in of itself a badge of honor, I don't think. And I think people stress that way too much. You can find better stuff in the indie world, and you can also find better stuff in the commercial world. It doesn't have to be this great divide. So, yeah. And your hot take, Ben? What was the thing you wanted to respond to?
So I don't know if it was so much of a hot take, but it's something I just want to respond to in a factual way. So I saw something that's kind of making its rounds on social media, and it was a post by someone who claims to have worked in some capacity in production on the latest J.K. Fantastic Beasts and How to Find Them film. Which I guess that I don't even know if they're making a new one, but apparently I guess they're making number 3 or something like that.
They don't need to.
Anyway, so this person is on the post. They basically say if you watch the movie on any way, you're just going to be giving money to J.K. Rowling, and she doesn't need money because she's a very bigoted person. And then they continue that the only people who make money after the film, right? The person says, you're not supporting me or any of the other people who worked on the film. You're only supporting the directors, the producers, J.K. Rowling indirectly, and the actors who agreed, to highlight themselves in promotion of a work, which is demeaning to the trans community. So leaving aside any, I'm going to leave aside any questions of like J.K. Rowling herself, all right, and the moral issues with that. Not wading into that, but just to counter that, only the directors, producers, and the frontline, above the line actors get paid anything after the film. Whether this person who's posted this actually worked on the film or not, it doesn't mean that everyone who works in some point in the film understands how things work with everyone else in the film world. So on the music side of film, you get paid very, very little on certainly on anything union in the United States. Get paid very, very little upfront to produce the music, work on it in some manner, record it, play on it. And the contract is such that you make royalties afterwards. And that's generally how you make almost all of your money if you're on the music side of things. So just to counter that, musicians also, most of their living, or at least the living they're making from film music, comes from sales, streams, views in theaters, that sort of thing. So that is relevant to them. So it's not just, if you want to take that route of saying that, you want to boycott this film so that you hurt Rowling and also the people who chose to, be involved in some immoral project because it's headed some way by J.K. Rowling, and you want to hurt them, just remember that you do actually have some financial impact if nobody watches this film you'll have some impact on the people on the music side of it, despite what this person claims. To be fair, the laws may be slightly different. I assume it was recorded in London, and so contractual laws may be a little bit different, and you may get a little bit more upfront. But as a general rule, if you want to boycott films and think that you're not hurting anybody because at the lowly people who held the boom or whatever, they've already made their money, is generally not true.
Is this person claimed to have worked on the film?
Yes, the person claims, without saying what exactly their role in production was, that they worked on set somehow.
I'm going to assume they were a PA. And they have a production assistant. They get paid either literally nothing or they're an intern functionally, or basically nothing, and they don't get royalties afterwards. So this person is just talking out of their rear end about speaking for everyone else, which is all too common. Stop speaking for other people. Speak for yourself.
Yeah. Again, not related at all to the film, just as a general rule. Just remember that the music side makes most of its money, almost all of its money, after the fact. They don't get paid hardly, they get paid hardly anything upfront.
Also, if you find it that objectionable, why did you work on the film? That's the other question that came to mind. If it's that objectionable, then why the heck did you work on it? That's kind of strange. Okay. I think that was it. I think we went through all of the hot takes.
Yep.
Cool. Ben, you want to introduce the next segment?
Sure. So this will be, after listening live, this will be our break, and where we start the next section for if you're going to watch us in after we've edited it and watching it in post. But if you are just joining us for this segment, we are Mixed Media, and we've already heard from me. I've given my responses to a couple of hot takes from Reddit, and we have heard from Nathan about some of the problems with Steam and Epic Games. And we have Irving with some of his thoughts. Actually, I'm not even sure I know what your topic is, Irving. So
yeah,
why don't you take it away?
Yeah, I'll be talking about personal branding. So for people who don't know, I own a company called Ariella, and I do brand work for different people. I do it for myself, not enough, but I can speak from personal experience. So this is mostly about personal branding in general, really. And I guess one of the points I'll be making is that they're intertwined. And how that can help you, whatever kind of artist you are. The first thing I have to say up front is that the internet is still undervalued, which is a big thing to say because there's so much content out there, there's so much everything. It's still undervalued. So, and it makes branding and getting yourself out there a million times easier than it would be if there was no internet, for independent people in particular. One of my biggest things is, if you're going to pursue a path that's a little bit alternate, you're going to try to, make your own thing, which I'm totally down for. That's what I'm doing. Then you really have to understand what exactly you're getting into. I've talked about finance before on the channel. I've talked about particular skills that are a little bit more practical. So if you want to check those out, you can check them out on the channel. I think you'll learn a good bit. But so we're gonna talk about personal financing. So the first thing that I have to say, personal branding, I meant to say. The first thing I have to say is, what is personal branding? Well, we know what branding is. Well, maybe we don't know what branding is. Branding is essentially a means of conveying a personality, right? I don't know if I can think of a better way to, maybe I should have looked up a more technical definition or something like that. But it's a means of conveying a personality of an entity. So if you think of Apple, right? there are immediate things that come to your mind, immediate images that are sort of hardwired into your mind in association with Apple. Literally the Apple logo, a glowing Apple logo, right? That comes to my mind immediately. Gray, silver, non-color, right? Very chromatic. And I think maybe if I'm thinking about older Apple, white, right? So all those things come to mind because they've put those things forth as part of their image, their brand image. And there's other kinds of branding. What other things might I think about? There's sonic branding. So with Apple, you can think about the gong, right? That of when you turn on an Apple computer. I think it's the same thing as it's been literally since the beginning. The same sound, right? And that's I don't. Doesn't matter how much I hate Apple or whatever. That gong sound is never going to leave my brain in association with Apple. So
wait, what gong sound are we talking about? I actually don't know what this is.
When you turn on an Apple computer,
It makes a noise?
yeah, that thing.
It's been I haven't used a Apple computer in a very, very long. Oh, it's kind of like it sounds like a bunch of things in unison making like a noise.
It's like it's not a literal gong, obviously. It's like very synthesized, very like old, like 80s sort of like sounding
All right,
synthesized sound. Yeah. Ben, do you know what I'm talking about? That Apple gong?
I'm not an Apple person, so
Maybe it was my time working at the DMC at Hopkins that really hard coded the gong sound. But yeah, you think of all these things, and the reason you think about all these things is because they put those forth as part of their personality. Now, we're not going to be talking so much about that kind of branding as much, but like I said, they're intertwined with personal branding. This is putting forth you yourself, you the owner, founder, even if you're on the team, right? Even if you don't own the thing, right? Or even if you don't own anything, you don't own a business and you just want to have a voice out there in the world, your personal brand is something that you intentionally put out into the world that reflects some sort of unique personality that you have, right? So this is attached to you versus attached to a business per se, but like I said, they're going to be connected if you have a business. So I think a lot of people, this is from my experience working with people, a lot of people hesitate when it comes to branding because they think they need to come up with something clever and unique, and they need to like go through some like really rigorous like process that's like algorithmically based or something, or like something just really circuitous when the questions that you have to ask yourself are like pretty simple. The biggest thing that I advocate for with the modern economy, with what I call the new economy, you can look up that term. The biggest thing with the new economy is that you can't hide anymore, right? I mean, every company that has either a divisive reception or people hate those companies, those are almost always the least transparent companies, on the planet, right? Powerful, but not transparent at all. The reason that happens in this modern economy is that information travels so quickly, right? So, it's as simple as if I go down the street, I want to know whether that restaurant is good or not, I go to Google reviews, right? And I can immediately see what problems people had with that restaurant. Is Ben frozen again? Oh, no, he's not. Okay. I think you were just so still, I thought you were frozen. So basically, it's not worth it to hide, right? If you think about it within your business, you think about your personnel that you have, your employees that you have. If you are really crappy to your employee, what's going to happen is they're going to go out and they're going to tell everyone exactly what you did, and likely if it's a serious allegation, they're going to bring the receipts, right? They're going to have some sort of thing to back it up, and they're not going to be afraid to disseminate that stuff. None of that is worth it, right? Like none of trying to manage all of that is not worth it. The only people who can manage that are multi-billion-dollar companies that insist on operating off of old mentalities on transparency. But that's not going to cut it if you're going to be a new person on the block. You've got to be actually transparent and forthcoming about everything you do, or else it'll bite you in the butt later. If you tell a lie, as simple as that, to a customer, to an employee, you have no idea where that goes. Not to mention that lying is immoral anyway. So, yeah. So that's to say, your personal brand should be actually an extension of you, actually. It's not good enough to try to create a different persona on top of yours. And on top of that, wow, the biker people up here. Give that a second. Okay, that's going to get edited out. Yeah. Okay. But the example that sorry, lost my train of thought. With personal branding, you want it to be an extension of you, an extension of who you are. If you add a persona on top of yourself, a few things are going to happen. You're going to come off as fake because you are not that person. And with the amount of branding that I would advertise that or advocate that you do for yourself, that's going to be very hard to maintain without looking fake. Almost no one does it. You know, a lot of people look at a lot of social media influencers and whatnot, and a lot of the people say like, "Oh man, this person is doing so well because they put forth this persona." It almost always like dies, right? Think about PewDiePie. Do you think PewDiePie is a persona on top of himself, or do you think that's PewDiePie you see? That's PewDiePie you see, right?
As a persona, he must be tired keeping that up for
right.
He must have one.
Right, exactly. He's pretty much himself, right, with some attenuations and stuff like that. But pretty much he's himself. He brings his YouTuber self when he's on YouTube, but he's just himself, just in YouTuber form, right? So, what if he didn't do that? If he was more coy, or like adding a persona on top of himself, or people he work with, he treated differently than he treats his audience, and all that kind of stuff. That stuff always turns into drama down the road, and it'll never work out well, as people feel betrayed. And a lot of people can just smell it anyway before it even happens, unless you have some attachment to the person you're watching. So that's the first reason I would say transparency and bringing yourself to your personal brand is the first most important thing. The second reason I'd say that is because it's exhausting. You don't want to live that way. Like, I promise you don't want to live that way. You don't want to be on Instagram or wherever you're posting just being a fake person. That's not you're not going to be joyful in going about your business, and that's going to affect other aspects of your life, whether that's your personal life, whether that is literally your business, whether that's how genuine you come off to people because you have such a touchy, that sort of facade breaks so easily. Whatever it is, I promise you'll be a lot happier if you bring yourself to the table and just embrace yourself when you put yourself out there versus putting a persona on top of yourself and trying to act for the rest of your life. It's not going to work out very well. So before you even do that, and if you're even in the stages where you don't even have a business created yet, right? Like you're just thinking about it, or you don't have a personal brand yet. You're not putting yourself out there yet. The first thing I need you to ask yourself is, do you know yourself actually, right? I like to take things a little bit deeper than just the surface level. How to do this, and step 1, 2, 3. I don't think anything really works that way very easily. Some of the people who are best at personal branding, I promise you, they don't view it that way. So, do you know yourself actually? Right? Like, could you do an honest assessment of yourself if you had to? That goes deeper, right? Do you have an internal life, right? What I mean by that is, like, do you reflect on yourself at all? Like, do you keep time away from your business, your brand, the internet, to just have a moment of space for yourself to get in touch with yourself, right? Really, what that means is like giving yourself space to think, sort of in conversation with yourself, right? Do you give yourself that space? And how honest are you when you're in those spaces, right? Like, how honest with yourself are you? And I don't think if you have any semblance of that sort of internal life, I don't think you should even continue, because you will not only not know how to go about accentuating yourself when you're putting yourself out there, but you're going to end up lying to yourself at one point about what exactly you're doing, what exactly you're trying to achieve. You'll create that cognitive dissonance over time, and you'll end up probably creating a persona eventually, as time goes on, if you deny parts of yourself that do exist, right? So that's the first thing. Have an internal life. The second thing is always start with this business or not, this is always important, and it's especially the exciting thing about the new economy, if nothing drastically changes, is that, the exciting thing is that I promise you, it doesn't look that way. And I know a lot of young folks, a lot of like Gen Z folks and younger, a lot of them are very cynical about how to make money. I promise you, the more virtue you have, the more successful that's not an abstract thing. I'm saying literally, the more successful you will be. So I'm saying, if you hold yourself accountable for everything that you do, you strive to be a better person, you're honest with yourself, and you correct yourself, you seek to be a better person, I promise you that has dividends in your business. And that has to be there all the time. Like literally in or out of business, that has to be there all the time. There's no other way around it.
So do you think that, like, even those who are like, I don't know, like the most famous entrepreneurs and stuff like that, do you think that all of them do like heavy self-reflection and stuff like that?
No, not at all. And I think that's the older way, but they're already there, right? So there was a time where it was very easy to come up without having to deal with your own crap, essentially. It was easy to come up without, and some people will still have an easy time doing that. What changed, like I said, was transparency, right? So the level of transparency, the decentralizing of a lot of things has caused that as well, and that's just going to continue in a lot of ways. So, the gatekeepers can't shield you as much anymore because they can't even help you as much anymore, in terms of lifting you up, right? So if you're going to go at it on your own, sans gatekeepers, sans industry, not industry at large, but, sort of the mecca institutions, then you're also simultaneously putting yourself out there without any PR shield, without any you don't know what happens behind the scenes there, and it's unsavory, and you shouldn't even want that anyway, right? Like people, these companies will, someone's threatening to talk to the media about something, they will send a shady guy to your door and say all these things will happen to you if you don't comply with what you want. It happens fairly often. The crazy thing, though, is the reason why we know it happens fairly often is because exactly transparency, right? I think a lot of things have come to light as of late as to what happens behind these, closed doors, and it's going to keep accelerating. So, that's basically why transparency is increasing. And that's a good thing. I think we should be happy about that. That's a good thing. So great. So the next question you have to ask yourself is, why are you putting yourself out there? Not just, this seems like a good thing to do for me. Because you have to realize that, one, you're going to put yourself again in the limelight. And two, if you don't have an idea of why you're doing what you're doing, your brand is aimless. Is completely aimless. There's nothing attached to it. It doesn't mean anything. It's self-centered. It'll come off as self-centered very often if it has no actual goal, motive, right? It could be as simple as if you're, let's say, a nutritionist, you're an Instagram nutritionist, and your why you are doing it is because helping people eat healthier is a good thing. And you want to promote that goal. It could be that simple, but you have to actually mean it, right? It has to be the actual why you're doing it. And I would, again, if your number one reason is money, usually if you're going into a field that requires personal branding, that's not the right attitude to go about things. Maybe go to finance or something like that. And the last thing is on that sort of these sort of deeper aspects is think transcendently about everything you do, right? Like ask yourself why until you can't anymore. Of course, like, you know, that's difficult, and that's hard, but this will illuminate things about you that you want to project, that you become proud of because you understand the why, right? So I'll give an example from my own personal brand. So my company is called Ariella. Its colors are gold and black, right? And the name Ariella is derived from the word for gold, the AU, right? Aurum, the root for gold, and the Latin word for halo, kind of smushed and rearranged and morphed. And I wanted a unique name. But that means something to me, and that becomes part of my personal brand. It also becomes part of my my company's brand as well, right? And that meaning to me is a little bit more transcendent than just, I think that's cool, right? So go wherever you find that transcendent thing. Just go in that direction. You don't have to think about whether it's trendy or whatever. Just forget all that stuff. Go in the direction that you understand intimately because you believe those things intimately, right? So, you know, again, for me, my biggest thing is beauty as a transcendental, right? So, like, beauty itself is a fundamental thing for me, and that's how I kind of approach everything I do. So, yeah, that's one way to think about it. Yes, and it's also helpful to talk to people because other people might know you in certain ways better than you know yourself. Yeah. So with all that said and done, now what do you do? Well, I'll list 3 things you should not do. So the first thing is don't separate yourself. If you have a company, don't separate yourself from your brand. Don't make them different things. Don't separate the entities. The reason why I say that is because leveraging yourself right now in this environment is extremely valuable. I reach more people almost all the time if I communicate something as me as a person versus my company communicating that from some sterile brand, right? Don't divide the two things. Make yourself the head of your company, the leader of your company, part of your company, part of your initiative, and just intertwine those things. Irving is Ariella. Ariella is Irving, right? And that will bring the force of a human being, which is a lot more important to people. A human being they might know or they might like or something like that, or they might vibe with the stuff that you came up with, right? After self-reflection, they may vibe with you on those things. And they're along the ride with you, you know, with you and your vision. And that translates to your company, right? It's the same thing.
Yeah, talking to, like, if you're like doing an email or something or any sort of thing, and like if you can't see the person, right, and you see their name instead of their company, it's a lot more nice, I guess, because on one end, like, I don't know, it sort of feels like you're speaking to a black box if it's a company name. I don't know, it's a very odd thing to explain because it's a person, you know what I'm saying? Like, but especially with large companies where maybe you're speaking out to customer service and they email you and it might be no name or something like that, right? It just feels like you're talking to some mysterious entity, even though we all know it's just a person. You know what I'm saying? It just doesn't feel right.
For sure. And I'll be asked all the time, like, I want my brand to have a voice, and they'll be like, what is my, like, how do I find, like, how I look at this other brand and I see they have a cohesive, coherent voice. You are the voice, right? You are the voice. That is the voice of your brand. You are the voice of your brand. And yeah, that's going to take accentuating the parts that are relevant for what you're doing, your mission. That's going to take working on yourself, right, to be more consistent. That's going to take a lot of practical work in creating assets and all this kind of stuff, coming up with branding items and thinking out how that practically plays out. How do you take your voice and you apply it to your branding? That's going to all take a lot of effort, and it's not going to be literally like one-to-one, like, oh yeah, my tweets are my brand. That's not going to work, right? But it's more like a translation of your voice into different ways of expressing that through your brand. So don't disconnect those two things. The second mistake people make mistakes with, I guess, is that they make their products or service their brand. So what do I mean by that? They make the thing they produce the brand instead of the person who's producing it. That is, again, not leveraging humanity properly. You can get away with it to an extent, but I just think it's a circuitous route. It'll be a lot more efficient if you just present your brand as is and say, remember me because you like me, right? Me and my brand. You like me and my brand. You vibe with me and my brand. Remember that versus remember the product, which they may not have had as good of a annoying as good of a interaction with, or as meaningful, right? It's much more meaningful to interact with something that has a little bit more abstraction to it and brings a little bit more abstraction to their lives. So it brings a little bit more, for me, beauty, right? Like, to their lives than something that maybe they use and throw away, or a service that is limited time. That's not going to have a lasting impact. So some people, what they'll do is like their websites will be hideous, but their product pictures are beautiful, super branded, or the packaging on the product is super branded, super beautiful, but their websites are disgusting. But the website is actually the thing that makes the product have context. Like it is what gives it the context. Because there might be 10 other people making the same thing as you are, but then they don't care about those things because they care about your mission, but you didn't communicate it, right? So don't lose that leverage by focusing on your services. And a lot of freelancers do this as well. They're basically a black box, with I do X written on top of it, right? Like, and all they care about is like putting their reel up, putting their like example stuff. That's all good. You need all that stuff, but don't just become black box that produces X, right? Become
like you got a Fiverr or something like that. It's just like, I don't know. You're just like the same as everyone else who does the same thing. Like some random person with some random name. We'll do this for some amount of money.
And yeah, like I said earlier in the prior segments, nothing will beat being a better artist, right? Like if you're an artist or whatever you do, nothing will beat being better at what you're doing. That's always the number one thing in terms of being able to generate sales, being able to generate money, and always trying to be better within reason, obviously. But, why not grease everything, grease the wheels, stand out, and the biggest thing is return customers, right? Like people like you and your brand, and they'll even promote you and your brand because they like what you have to say, right? So there's 7 billion people, 8 billion people in this world, right? You're going to find the beautiful thing about the internet, and one of the reasons why it's undervalued is that you have access to almost all those people. And you're going to hit a niche that is going to give you a sustainable life, definitely, right? If you play your cards right, you're going to hit a niche where a lot of the people who, a lot of people are like you, or maybe they're not like you, but they like what you have to say, right? Or they respect you. Maybe that's the right way to put it. Or they like your brand, they respect your brand, right? So then what happens is they start associating everything that you do more so with your brand than they associate what you do with a black box, which is not as good of an experience for them. Also, like, it's not as fun for you either. Definitely not as fun for you. The third mistake I see is that people assume that, this kind of goes to what I was saying before, people assume that, okay, because I say, okay, everything becomes an extension of me, that I can only become, all I have to do is then just open my mind and let everything loose, and then everything will be okay. That's not the case. That's not saying don't be transparent. This is a different thing I'm saying. I'm saying you actually have to put effort and intention into everything that you do. You can't just like post a picture of yourself like 24/7 or something on your Instagram, unless that's related to your business in some way. But like, just like opening your life up solely is not going to be the only thing that is going to propel you forward. You actually have to accentuate, like I said, the parts that make you special, connect with your business and all that kind of stuff. Trying to think of a good example, but like, it's not going to be useful if you're, let's take the nutritionist example, posting your meals every day. That's not the kind of effort you need to put in your brand, when you should be talking about the things that you, since you say you care about this, being a nutritionist, take that passion and project the best parts that you got out there, right? Take that, project that out. You can still post the meals that you, well, when I say meals, you're a nutritionist. That was a really terrible example. I was thinking about like the Instagram, like typical food pictures. So that is actually related, but you get what I'm saying. Something that's completely unrelated. Yeah, share those parts with your life, and as your audience grows, the more you can open up, and But the thing is, you're gonna have to generate assets intentionally, right? Making a YouTube video is not gonna be as simple, depending on what you're doing, as turning your camera on and going for it. You might actually have to think about color. You might actually have to think about pace of edit. You might have to think about how that pace of edit goes with the rest of your brand, because I'm telling you, like, the best out there, they all do that. I want you to go to
like pacing. I never thought about that.
Yeah. If you go to James Hoffman's YouTube channel, he's a coffee person. I love him. He's the one who is responsible for getting me into coffee. You can tell that his style of video extends from him as a person very easily. It's very obvious. You can tell that who he is on camera is just the camera version of him. It's not a different persona, right? And you can tell that he understands how to accentuate the best parts of all of that in order to deliver himself both transparently, but also with value and connection, right, with his audience. So that's like the super basics. I'm not going to go into too much more detail. When it comes to, I think everyone goes to logo. They go to, okay, what filter do I use on Instagram? They go to, that all stuff is secondary. This is a 101 sort of situation where I'm like, okay, this is where you start. This is where I tell other people to start too. Even when you're working with a group, I've had people talk to me about this. They're more of a group kind of organization. They're like, well, how do we have a singular voice of your group? Your group voice is still your voice. The first thing I say is, what do your internal chats look like? Like, when you're talking to each other, are you cracking jokes all the time? Are you sharing memes all the time? Is it mostly serious? Are you guys arguing with each other? Friendly, obviously. Debating with each other? Like, what's going on? And just start revealing that. Start revealing it. Mm-hmm.
Okay, before I say the question, though, I just want to say we're at 2 hours currently in the podcast, and I have that meeting at 9 p.m.
Okay.
So we're running up real close. But real quick question. What happens if you start as a solo person in your business and you grow into a larger group and you want to reflect the whole group's, as you said before, like the whole organization's voice? Do you just change it midway, or?
The great thing about personal branding is you can start to, at that point, you can retain your personal brand like as yourself, right? So you still have that leverage with yourself, but your group dynamic with your company can then start shifting towards the voices that make up the decision-making body of that group. So like now your Instagram becomes still like more like you, and if people just, they really vibe with you mostly, they still are attracted to you and what you're doing through that. Whereas like if you didn't even have that personal brand to go along with your company, then that you might actually have to make some sacrifices there as to exactly how you're going to be projecting yourself, be a little bit more fake and stuff like that. So yeah, so that's pretty much all I got on my topic.
Mm-hmm. That is very informative stuff. It's like applicable to like not just the film industry too. It's like general branding.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever business you're doing, unless you're doing some like commodities or something that's super like backdoor, like and interface is zero with the public, or you're expected to be like a godless heathen in whatever you're doing, then you should be good. This should be useful. And I will say, even if you're in commodities, eventually everyone will be like this. Eventually it will become everyone. even commodities will not be able to, even really behind the scenes supply chain kind of like stuff is not going to escape the new economy if things keep going the way that they're going now. So.
Okay, well, we should move on to news because like I gotta go.
Yes, news. You can go first.
Okay, yeah. Real quick. So this is relevant because I was talking about GOG before, the DRM free. So Hitman Game of the Year edition has been removed from GOG because it's technically not DRM free. You can do some things DRM free, but for certain things it requires an internet connection where it actually checks whether you own the game or not. And it's something about like I think it might be like I don't know, like unlocking different weapons or something like that. And my second piece of news is that GTA. So everyone's waiting for GTA 6, but they're not doing that. Instead, they announced the GTA Trilogy Definitive Edition, which is going to be GTA 3, Vice City, and San Andreas, but remastered, it seems.
That's disappointing, probably, to the fans.
I mean, I'm sure for some people, I think people in general are happy, but it's like, I think they just don't want to. I don't know, like, maybe they just. It's probably cheaper. Anyways, I gotta move on. That's all I have.
Okay, gotcha. Is your meeting in person? Like, do you have to skedaddle now, or?
No, but I do have to leave early though. Earlier than it starts.
Okay. Do you have to head out now? Because you can head out now if you want.
Okay, yeah.
All right. Bye, Nathan.
All right. Well, it was good. I'll see you guys later.
Bye. See you later. Yep. Oh, I don't know what kind of ugliness is going to happen when he leaves on my screen. Let's see. Oh, he stays frozen. Okay, we'll leave him frozen on there. Any news for you, Ben, at all? You're on mute, I think.
Okay, I don't know. I didn't do anything. Yeah, I don't have anything.
Cool. Yeah. The only thing I have in the film industry is for a long while, I spent a lot of time in Google Trends because I was doing certain types of work. Then I stopped doing that kind of work, so I haven't been keeping track of like search trends and all that kind of stuff. But then I was curious ahead of the show about the word theater and its associated words and like how that's doing. Pre-pandemic, you could definitely tell that the word's relative popularity would kind of stay really consistent, but there's like this very faint but detectable, like you could see it there, like fall off, which I think if you neglect that, if you're in the industry, then that is you're asking for a death wish. But I checked up on it again, and here's what it looks like. Here's a picture of the trend for theater. Obviously, this is the last 5 years, I think. Either that or last year. I don't remember what I did, and I can't read it right now. Yeah, it's the last 5 years. And so obviously you can see where the pandemic hit and, that deep dive downwards. But then you see the trickle up, and actually the trickle up has been more than I expected, which I think is very interesting. So if you're interested in that information, it's there for you. If you're listening on audio only, like I said, there's like a slight trickle up. The list seems pretty consistent. It's almost at pre-pandemic levels. We'll see what happens. There are some interesting films that are coming out that might bring lots of butts in seats. So we'll have to see how that works out. So I'm monitoring that. And the last thing I have to say is I had another thing. Oh, yeah. I keep saying this at the end of the episodes because I like being right. But like actually now it's like become a critical mass sort of thing. I gotta talk about it in detail. I might do another mixed media episode specifically on this topic. But I think at this point we've hit like a interesting inflection point when it comes to inflation stuff. It's super relevant to you. I promise. It's super relevant to you. I think people underestimate how relevant it is to you, especially if you're like me, you're on your own, or even if you're working part-time and you have a side hustle and you're doing this as a side hustle, or even if you have a job, the only people who are super insulated from this are people like Ben who are in school. But if you, unless Ben has like a lot of assets and things like that, I don't know. But if you're out there in the wild outside of school and you're not like school, the reason why school is insulated is because debt is the exact thing that you want in this kind of environment. It's the most beautiful thing you could have in this kind of environment. I think I'm going to do a mixed media episode about a haul of goods that I'm going to buy in response to a lot of these inflationary pressures upward. I just have to say that like it's turned into the kind of thing where I don't think it's revocable anymore. That's why I say there's an inflection point. And I guess I'll explain that. Some other time, yeah, we'll explain it on Discord or something like that. But I really do think that you need to think about it. I have an episode about that. A lot of that advice is going to be very hard to execute. I don't know, relatively quickly, it seems, because you'll just be priced out of everything. So, don't get priced out of everything. Protect yourself. That's really why I'm saying it, because it's not like this is not about you making money. This is about protecting yourself from something that might be very bad. I just think artists don't tend to be very money savvy, and it's just better for you to know something rather than know nothing about this kind of stuff. So you have to listen to me, just do your own research and all that kind of stuff. Again, not financial advice too, but yeah, I think it's important. So there's that. I think that's it for me. All right. It was a good episode. I hope you guys found it all helpful. If you're listening to this segment, I think I'll probably separate this news segment out into its own episode. I'm doing that with the last round of episodes, and every time I've done that, it's actually done really well. People seem to like the news segment on its own. It's like everything gets increased the more we split it up, which is interesting. It might have to do with length. It also might have to do with variety as well. But I'm glad that works. So I'll probably split this out separately. So if you're listening to this, we just did 3 awesome episodes. 1 arguing with Reddit about hot takes from the internet, and 2 interesting and I think very informative topics. So you can go check that out on our channel pages, wherever you are. All links are in the description. Shout out to Locals again, mixedmedia.locals.com. If you go there, you can see what your support can do for us and do for you, all the perks that you can get. So that's my spiel. Anything else? All right, so I'll say thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week.
Yep, thanks for listening.
Bye.